In this edition of RIN TV, crimes and questions of coverage, A.I.R.'s Doctor Gupta on modeling supply chain risk, captive currents with Andy Barile on creative developments in uses of captives, and a look at the Ward 50 for life and health and P&C companies. All this and more, you're watching World Risk and Insurance News on RIN TV. Hello, I'm Marisa Christian, and here's what's happening in the world of insurance. We begin with two tragic stories in the U.S. getting a lot of attention from insurers. Families of victims shot at the Batman movie in Colorado will unlikely succeed in suing the theater or the movie's producers. U.S. tort law permits injured persons to seek compensation for wrongful acts. Experts say claimants would have to prove the acts could have been foreseen, and that's difficult when dealing with crimes committed by third parties. State Farm says it should be exempt from paying for lawsuits against convicted child molester and ex-Penn State football coach Jerry Sandusky or his charity, The Second Mile. The insurer says its policy doesn't cover intentional, willful, or malicious acts. In related news, State Farm pulled its sponsorship of the Penn State football program. With economic conditions forcing many companies out of business, risk managers are forced to consider more than natural catastrophes in management of supply chain risks. Recently, we spoke with Dr. Gupta from A.I.R.'s catastrophe risk engineering practice. He discussed predictive analytics and the A.I.R. approach to modeling supply chain risk. Here are highlights of our interview.
Some of the larger organizations, some of the forward-looking risk managers, they recognize that the best mitigation happens before something happens. And that is where the predictive analytics is coming in. So we are hearing more and more companies asking for the analytics, more detailed analytics, to really pinpoint where the risk is coming from and then what to do about it. The risks are actually increasing. They are getting more complex, and to really be in a position to do informed decision making, you need to have the quantitative underpinnings to make those decisions, to sell the solutions to your C-suite. We have developed a methodology by which we can lay out a framework for the supply chain for an organization, and then we can quantify probabilistically all the risk that is coming from each and every node on the network. Since supply chains are global, you're looking at all the perils in the world where the entities might be affected. So you're looking at earthquakes, you're looking at floods, you're looking at typhoons, hurricanes, what have you, and there's a tremendous amount of data that we can leverage out of our catastrophe models for that purpose. Then comes the exposure data, which comes from the company or the organization, and that also is quite voluminous because you're not just looking at what exists at a particular location, you also have to look at how does that location interface with every other location on the supply chain network, and then you have to simulate all the analyses. Through the simulation, you can account for these uncertainties to come up with the best estimate of the true risk.
If you'd like to see more of our interview with Dr. Gupta, visit our on-demand library. It's time for another edition of RIN TV's Captive Currents with Andy Barile. In this segment, Andy reviews trends in captives, from their origins in Fortune 500 companies to more recent exciting developments today. Here are highlights of his report.
The Fortune 500 corporations in the United States. All of them today have captive insurance companies. Smaller companies are looking at the captive market now on the essential concept of two things. One, to increase their coverage concepts that they're looking for risks that are coming up in their corporation that they really want to look at very closely and design manuscripted policies for. And at the same time, the private corporations are pretty cash rich, so they're also looking at the tax benefits that the captive provides in the sense to the parent corporation. The coverages that are going into captives now are much more creative than what we did years ago, and today we're into cyber liability issues, we're into reputational risk, we're into kidnap and ransom insurance, we're into insuring deductibles under the D&O policies and putting those into the captive. Now, the captive insurance company, if they're looking to buy new types of reinsurance from brand new entities that are going into the reinsurance market, they become an initial client for all of these hedge funds that have started Bermuda reinsurance companies in the last year or so. So I look at that as a very exciting change in the marketplace to challenge the Swiss reinsurance companies where I used to work and the Munich reinsurance companies and places like that.
If you'd like to see more of Captive Currents with Andy Barile, visit our on-demand library. For the 22nd year, the Ward Group published its list of top-performing life and health and P&C companies. We'd like to congratulate those that made the grade. For a full list of those that made the Ward 50 annual ranking, visit our on-demand library. I'm Marisa Christian. Join us next time for more world risk and insurance news on RIN TV.